He's been here all this time.
Replay it. It's the guy who audited me in fucking Scientology.
Right here.
That's literally him. That's
Okay, what is your view of your early childhood?
I don't know. I think it's bad before.
It's possible. And then I have worked in this area. You do look a little familiar. I
Yeah.
can't tell where from.
Okay.
What? Yeah.
Church of Scientology. You audited me.
Wait, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't recognize you.
It's a small.
Ladies and gentle monkeys, I have somehow upgraded. Okay? I'm not your average Joe Schmo. I used to have the battle pass on Fortnite before you had to pay for it. If you're watching this video, you may know that me, my boy Tony Balsakovich, and the Church of Scientology have had a little entanglement for the past few months.
And then I got into an entanglement with August. That's what I said.
An entanglement?
Yes. Yes.
A relationship?
Yes. It was a relationship. Absolutely.
But unlike Jada Smith and her son's best friend, we wasn't f***ing them, okay? We was f***ing them up. Mic drop. That shit was cold. But real talk, my comments, I'm hoping it's working. My comments have been loaded with, oh, what happened with Scientology? Did anybody text you? They email you? They finna sue? Blah, blah, all this shit. I can't even go 1 month without posting, without somebody being on my case about, oh, it's been a month, he hasn't posted. Scientology's probably molesting him right now. It's a blessing, though, not a curse, okay? I love y'all. But on a serious note, if you've kept up with anything we've done on this channel since then, or even on IG or TikTok, you may see that we've been in a bunch of groups, cults, religions, whatever, kind of joining or getting their eye on perspective. What is this actually like if anybody was wanting to do it? In all honesty, we're just trying to take independent journalism to the next level, I guess you could say. It's one thing to go outside of a building and interview the people around it and hope you could interview somebody in it. And then it's another thing to partake in it the way that that building would want you to. I know there's always that notion that comes with being a content creator or whatever you want to call it, that, okay, you must be doing it for money, for clout, blah, blah. Well, guess what? I'm still in school. I still work a full-time job. My shit busy as it could be. We really do this out of heart. Basically, all the revenue that I've accumulated from these videos created a charity that goes to a family in Palestine we got a little bit familiar with. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is the point of these videos is never supposed to be the result of anything negative. Despite whatever aspect you want to talk about, we're always looking for a positive side out of what we make. In our mindset, everything we put out is beneficial in one way or another. But without further ado, in full transparency, I think that maybe Scientology is stalking me in some way. And believe me, I'm not saying that because that's the answer a viewer might want to hear from a content standpoint. I'm going to explain to you why we've come to this conclusion. For starters, we obviously knew what we're getting ourselves into when we go on these little missions, side quests, whatever you want to call them. Everything that's controversial is usually controversial for a reason. And so obviously you won't catch us aiming to get pity from anybody. But it's gotten to a point where it might actually be starting to affect us in real life. Dating back to May, I believe it was when I first released the videos. I released it all in Reels, Shorts, TikToks, and that got a lot of people intrigued, but it also got a lot of people tight because they thought that maybe I was hiding shit for not putting out a full video. And I wish I could give you a cooler answer for that, but the reality was I just had school, bro. Like I was in an anatomy class. That was the hardest fucking shit I ever had in my life. Like I hope that teacher. And as mentioned, I'm a working class citizen. I know, poor me. We mean good faith to usually everybody in our videos. We do not put the personal information or even public information like their first names in any of my videos at all. And that still comes with a price. When I released my Scientology shit, I didn't even think of having it on YouTube by then. This was on, I think, on Instagram and TikTok. It took only 2 reels on Instagram for the Chicago org that we enrolled in to find out about it. And mind you, none of the info we gave them or anybody is ever linked to our personal info. You may be familiar with those apps that give you a fake number that functions the same as damn near a real one. And so we use shit like that to the best of our degree. But y'all know what they say, if your face is on the internet once, it's there forever. So this led to various forms of attempted contact, like this one that you're seeing on the screen right now. But that held no concern to me because usually it was on the number that I gave them. And as mentioned, the day after I posted only my second Instagram reel, I wake up to a text from the lady who was in my video.
Welcome to windy Chicago. I'm gonna take you inside the Church of Scientology, Chicago.
At first, they was shook us about my videos, but I think they realized they could capitalize off that clout by making an official account. I'm not trying to say it's because of me, but whenever anybody tags me or mentions me, they completely delete the comment. I honestly think they have my name filtered out. She put one of those typical smiley face emojis and said, "Hey Tyrone, call me when you have a sec." And because I only posted very few shit about Scientology at that point, I didn't think she found it. I had that feeling kind of in the back of my head, but I thought what she was going to call about was regarding the conversation we had prior to us kind of leaving and running away from the building. You know, when the young guy tried plugging in my glasses and couldn't find anything. I had an arranged marriage with her because she was my cousin. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Hey, can I see your sunglasses real quick?
Yeah.
Can I see this real quick?
Yes, sir.
So you're recording, right? I mean, this is a camera.
No, they can't record even if I wanted to. You can Google the type of glasses they are. It provides the
Yeah.
lens.
I mean, I guess we'll see if not.
Yeah, see this real quick.
Alrighty.
If you're not lying, right?
Yep.
Just
You know,
go through
yeah,
it.
there should be nothing really to worry about, you know?
Yes, sir.
Let's check this out real quick.
Disrespecting right now is disrespecting.
Yeah, but listen to this, okay?
Completely invading my comfort.
It's not a good
And I'm
use of
telling you,
Scientology.
you could call the cops. They can come wherever they want.
I was thinking maybe she was gonna try and apologize to us and try and get us to come back to the church, do another course, or have another auditing session about how traumatic it was getting pressed by him or some shit. But that wasn't the case. She was like, "Hey, Tyrone, how are you?" In her happy little voice. "Hey, I'm great. How are you?" And you know it's never a good sign when the other person asks you, you say good, and then they're like, "Not good." Because she was like,
Well, not so good, actually. Here's the thing, Tyrone.
"I need you to take those videos off of social media." And then I asked her, I'm like, "What videos?" I kind of knew it was cooked. The cover was blown. Yes, I'm Batman. How'd you know? And she tells me, "The videos you put on Instagram, you know, Tyrone, what I'm talking about. Please don't play stupid." And this whole time I was picturing her talking and her facade she puts on to lure people in. You know, like when she was telling us she's gonna go straight into us. Yeah, I'm gonna keep milking that for content. I don't give a fuck. I'm blushing.
Better chill
I'm a very blunt person, as
Yeah.
you can probably tell. I'm a very, like, whoop, I just go right in. But the thing is,
But I felt her gradually getting more annoyed and telling me that I have to take it down. And that's when we started having somewhat of a real conversation. And I'm not too public about this. One of the main reasons we did Scientology is not only that it's sort of a really popular, controversial cult out there, but I also did have a friend who was in it and ended up taking his own life. I said it once in an interview with Aaron Smith Levin, and I didn't talk about it too much after that. And so as you can see, there were multiple reasons at the time as to why I was motivated to see what really goes on in this church. And I'm not going to say too much about that, but this gentleman, God rest his soul, was audited in California and then did become a member of Scientology. And I didn't think too much of it at the time. I try not to be a leaf in the wind. I don't go with public opinion. If that's what one of my homies is into, I'm going to support it. But as time went on, we would talk about things on call that were somewhat concerning, and that's where I would start usually critically thinking more. But then it got to a point where it was too late. I didn't hear from him anymore. I couldn't get a hold of him anymore. And then I found out that he has passed away from one of his family members. And this is not something you're ever going to hear about. I always feel like suicide is typically underplayed. Even on things like social media, you usually have to blur that word out, even on YouTube, just to stay monetized. And so let alone it happening to a member of a tight discourse community like Scientology, they're going to do whatever they can to push that aside, even though it'll be an elephant in the room for those who know about it. And that was not because of Scientology directly. I'm not saying Scientology tried to cover it up or anything like that. Even though they've done sketchy shit like that a lot, it was confirmed that he ended up committing the act on himself. But obviously when people do that, it's because of everything in their lives that came crashing down to them to a point they probably couldn't handle. I'm not going to speak anymore on that. You usually get an idea of how that shit usually goes. And so obviously that's a terrible thing that could happen. And when you're hearing that, alarms would probably set off in your head, right? Especially knowing that it happened real soon after leaving the church that is supposedly life-changing for people. And I explained this whole thing to her in full transparency, as I was hoping that maybe she could return her responses back to me in full transparency, because it was on her phone. It wasn't on the Scientology phone directly. We had each other's numbers. But she didn't even take it with a grain of salt. She literally just called bullshit on it, which I'm not going to feel hurt by it. In my mind, sometimes it is what it is. As much as it sucks, I personally do feel like that's the model you have to go by. Especially with, I guess, Scientologists. After being around them for some time, I realized that reactive mind clearing, fuck it, maybe it gets to you. She essentially just accused me of lying, said that I'm doing it for content. She wants it down, and then she asked for his name. I gave her the name, and you may be wondering why. Well, Scientology has a database. If you're in Scientology, you're completing courses regularly because you don't want to just be OT3 your whole life. You want to be OT8 with the fucking big dogs, Scientology tracks that publicly, believe it or not. All course completions, even if you're not a part of the church anymore, are usually on the website. And she just kept ranting on and on about how she felt hurt by us lying about who we were the whole time and, quote, backstabbing her. And eventually it felt like I was talking to a wall, and I'm sure the same felt for her. Two people, different opinions. None of them are going to change it. Shit clashes. It was clear we were going nowhere. She kept accusing me of lying the whole time about my friend. So I gave her his name. I hung up the phone on her mid-sentence. I blocked her, and then I completely deleted the whole number. I didn't want any traces. I just started posting everything from that point on. And eventually I got enough views to be able to submit appeals on white pages and other websites like Been Verified, all that shit to get my personal information off of the internet. And I wish this was a sponsored video because shit, I could fucking use one. I just got demonetized on TikTok this morning and I don't really, but there's a lot of resources out there to help you do that as well. And I've been using them for a long time, honestly, because I've been paranoid about like data breaches and shit. But especially with this whole content creation, cult infiltration, Scientology shit, I didn't want any traces of me publicly on the internet. And I thought nothing about it until I went to Canada. Now, good old Tony lives in California, and I live in Illinois. We've been planning on this trip for so long to go to Toronto. Tony flew in from California to Chicago because we wanted to drive there. We like going on road trips. That's usually how we do most of our content when we're not flying. So when he landed, we were all giggity and shit. We were like so fucking excited. You had no idea. This Toronto trip was like holding a piston for your whole life and finally relieving it on a tree. We had hella plans there, even content-wise, until we got to the Canada border in Michigan. 4 hours in, you get to the point of passing Detroit, having to speak to Canadian border customs and all that shit. The United States and Canada are not third world countries, so usually that process is supposed to go smoothly and quickly. Just hand over your passport and whatever information is required, and then poof, good to go. But to our surprise, this was not going to be the case for us. The whole fucking trip went backwards. We grab our passports out of our bags to hand it to the gentleman, and then he stops and tells us he knows us from the Scientology videos. He refers to Tony as Mr. Balsakovich, and then starts talking about how he's seen our shit on, he said Facebook, but I didn't really have Facebook at the time, but I know IG and Facebook kind of connect, so I'm sure you might have seen it through there. I don't know. Maybe he didn't even see it. Maybe Canada's just a Scientologist country. But then shit gets weird because he says, I didn't really like your videos too much. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to be offended at that. As an influencer, you're not supposed to care who doesn't like your shit. You got to worry about who does, you know what I mean? But then he starts going on about how he really didn't think it was right. And me and Tony are just like giggling about it. We're telling him we're sorry to hear that, but what was it about it that you didn't like? We assume maybe it was the more human aspect of it, like seeing people being recorded without them knowing, but it wasn't. He immediately just says Scientology's not all that bad, And then me and Tony look at each other. We're thinking maybe he's like busting our balls a little bit, joking around. And then eventually we see he's not kidding. It felt like a freaking scene out of a movie because we're like laughing about it. And then he tells us it's not funny. And then hands us like an orange slip and then says, do me a favor, go to that building. Me and Tony look at each other. We're thinking like, what the fuck just happened? We're also like very unserious and serious situations. So we're still joking about it, thinking that maybe this is just a fork in the road and not a total blockage. We were directed to the building next to the customs, which is where they send you to further check you and investigate all that shit. So while all the other cars in the rows next to us got to leave freely, we ended up pulling our shit over. We thought, okay, whatever. It's going to be slight. We'll show them our bags and everything that they usually go through, and they'll see we have nothing. We'll be good to go. So then 2 officers after him follow us to the parking, make us get out, and then look through literally everything we have. Not just the bags, of course, the hoods and trunks and everything of the whip. Of course, that's normal. But then he takes my wallet, takes Tony's wallet, looks through that, Okay, maybe that's normal too. I'm not denying that because I know in both those buildings, the Canadian one and the US one next to each other, they're really strict about recording, but they're not supposed to take your phone. There are various signs saying no recording, this is government property, but there's no sign saying that your phone is going to be stripped from you and searched. But our phones were stripped from us and searched. And I also had a Zoom meeting playing in the background of the car ride for the past hour, and he ended up making me leave that Zoom meeting and still taking my phone, which really sucked, but I still got the credit, so I was chilling. He starts asking us these questions about our lives, about what we do for work, and why do we do that for work, how long are we going to be there, show us the hotel confirmation for Toronto, who are we planning on seeing, yada yada. That stuff, believe it or not, is kind of normal to be asking when you're border patrol. So again, we didn't think too much of it. But then it started taking a more taboo turn, like shit you wouldn't talk about at work. How much do we make off YouTube? What's the most I made off a video? And I'm thinking that stuff is for like maybe his own like curiosity. I know many people get curious off that shit. I was like, okay, fuck it, whatever. I gave him the tea. I explained to him that we had a charity. He's wondering what's the charity for. And I tell him it's for Palestine. I know that alone is sadly a controversial topic for many people, even though in my eyes it shouldn't be. I was aware that maybe even saying that would be giving him too much information to the point where it would designate his political beliefs over his job, if that makes sense. But he stopped talking after that, gave us our wallets and passports, and then directed us to the building next to it, which was where they were going to perform background checks. Both of our records are clean. Believe it or not, as much as we want to act like we're the hardest around, sometimes we have erectile dysfunction, you know? We're goody two-shoes. Then about an hour passes by from when we first arrived to the border, and the facility was dead empty. It was just us and the workers and the cops and shit. And again, we're still thinking, whatever, this is just a delay in the process. We're going to be good to go eventually. Until they call us both by our full names into separate interview rooms. I get out like maybe 2 minutes before Tony does. We both meet. We're waiting for our shit. We're thinking we're going to be free to go. Until eventually, Officer Hope comes back, hands us our passport, and also hands Tony a white paper, a document he needs to sign, explaining that he is not allowed in Canada for 10 years. During the conversations in the interview rooms, it was literally just more talk about YouTube and what we're going to do in Canada. They were really like paranoid that we were going to do it for the cults and shit. Clearly, the first guy who checked our passports walkie-talkied over to the fucking rest of the people or whoever. We were certain that it got to the point where maybe he kind of put in a false word for us, you know, got a little bias in there. We genuinely were convinced at that point that the first guy was a Scientologist or someone there was. They explained to Tony that he cannot enter Canada for 10 years because his father illegally snuck in over 20 years ago or some shit. And truth be told, that was true. His father was deported from Canada over 20 years ago. But that isn't supposed to affect us. I forgot to mention here, the guy whose jurisdiction it was to ban Tony from Canada for 10 years was honestly a dick. He was just rude to us the whole time. His name was Officer Hope, and here's a diss track Tony recorded on the way back in the car like 20 minutes after.
Your life is a joke like fucking Officer Hope. You don't got no hope in life like Officer Hope. Not even the fucking Pope touches as many kids as Officer Hope. You could be homeless, but at least you're not Canadian Border Patrol.
And after looking it up and even having a talk with my lawyer, he explained that, yeah, that's obviously not how it's supposed to go. Shit was a little grimy. And not even grimy, that wouldn't be the right word. Fishy, if that. So yeah, the whole trip went fucking backwards. Tony's not allowed in Canada for 10 years because supposedly his father was deported from it. So now that's a reason he can't enter. Luckily, I had a friend I met on TikTok a long time ago. Shout out DJ. He lets us use his crib whenever we're in Michigan. I left Tony in Detroit for one night because I had some shit to do down in Toronto. Went to Toronto, worst fucking trip of my life. After that one night, I went back down to Michigan, spent it with Tony before he goes down back to Cali. It just, the whole trip really caught us off guard. It was like a humbling experience, but we also felt like we really got our opportunity stripped from us because that was going to be our only video for a minute that we were going to shoot there. That I'm not going to say what the idea was, but boy, oh boy, was it going to be good.
This sucks too because it was some shit we could only do in Canada and not in the US.
This is still lore that we mention every FaceTime call, and we're still going to be talking about it when we're 70 years old with a glass of sparkling water, because we don't drink wine, alcohol, none of that. We are goody fucking two-shoes, yo. I don't know why they didn't let us in. It still gets to him too. But whatever. Point is, This is the lore of a lifetime, and it was clear that something was up about it because it doesn't just happen, especially when the first topic regarding it is about your Scientology video. Of course, in our minds, we're gonna think it's about the Scientology video. Now we're gonna start regarding the title and topic of the video more because, believe it or not, everything I just said is not why I feel like I'm being watched by Scientology. There's a little bit more to it. A little more to it, meaning right after the trip happens, I go back to work in school. Tony goes back to Cali. We're thinking we just gonna have to continue with our old Canada list lives for a little bit until I go back to work. The first week I go back to work, I see the gentleman who audited me in Scientology at my work. And I know what you're thinking at this point. Like, shit, honestly, if I wasn't me, I would think that shit like this is staged. I used to be that guy. Everything I'd see online that was like somewhat crazy or just good content, I'd think is staged. But that's really not the case. And I could show you here because I got whatever clips and pictures I could in the moment. The gentleman who audited me in Scientology, I'm still not going to say his name, but let's say his name was David, right? His name is not David. The only interaction I had in Scientology with David, and the only time I even seen David in Scientology at all, was when he was auditing me that time at 9 p.m. He was honestly the nicest one there, and me and Tony both agreed on that the minute we left, and even the minute after I did my auditing session. Like, we spoke to him, David, and he was honestly dope. Like, you could have a coffee with this guy. But of course, after we left, it's not like we were gonna have contact with him or see him anywhere until he was at my flipping work. During the times we visited, we had a lot of conversations with everyone, as you could imagine, and not many of them would tell us that they had other jobs outside of it, besides very few. And I don't recall Mr. David telling me anything, but heck, he's not required to, and also maybe it just wasn't that important. Usually, even the ones that work at the org, whether it's staff or Sea Org, they have other jobs too. Not only because Scientology doesn't pay them shit. Long story short, I work at a building in Chicago that's not close to the Scientology building whatsoever. But it's not that alone that's weird about it. It's the fact that I work maintenance in the building. Maintenance is just, if shit's broken, fix it. If shit needs cleaning, cleaning. And it's also very private for the most part. It's very few shareholders in it, and there's only one unit that's currently going through reconstruction for a family that's moving in. And so if you know anything about how that shit works, you need contractors to do that. So the project manager of the operation is going to hire people he knows or can find. You need guys for the walls, guys for the floors, guys for the doors, shit like that. This was a very big project in this unit. There were a lot of different teams coming in. Maybe you're starting to get the idea that it's an open opportunity to work there for a short amount of time. Though when I say for a short amount of time, that means the 10 months that project takes. And as maintenance, you're kind of supposed to know everybody that's in the building at all times. So I was familiar with all the contractors in this project until I'm clocking in one day, and then another gentleman walks in right after me wearing a hat and glasses. It's literally like in cartoons when you see characters like trying to dress up and be sneaky and shit, you know, they throw on like a hat and glasses. That's exactly what it felt like. So I clock in behind the desk, and then I see to the left of me, the gentleman approaches with a small dustpan and broom, and then looks me in the eyes and tells me, "Are you gonna kill me if I leave this here?" And I'm like, thinking maybe he's joking. I'm like, "No, go right ahead, right?" And he's like, "Okay, I thought so." And then he walked out. And I'm thinking, where the fuck do I know this dude from? Like, it has to be deja vu or something. And then it hits me, like, in a fucking snap, I realize, holy shit, that's David. I literally put my hands on top of my head. I'm like stressing out. I'm thinking it can't be. Like, I'm just tripping. Maybe the guy looks just like him, right? I had to have seen him here the whole time. This project's been going on since like summer. It can't just so be that he happens to come right now. And so I go back, I check the cameras, and I see that is literally him. I call my maintenance coworker to come up. I'm showing him. I'm like, dude, the guy from Scientology is here. He's like laughing about it, thinking I'm joking, or thinking that I mean like, oh, you just walked by or something. And then I show him the picture of the guy on the camera. And then I show him on my phone the point of the YouTube video where he's auditing me. My coworker just starts going nuts too. Like, we're thinking, like, what the fuck are the odds? And eventually David comes back inside to grab his dustpan and broom, and there me and my coworker are sweating like fucking cartoon characters. I'm trying to have small talk with him. I'm asking him, like, man, you really look familiar. I can't put my finger on it. Like, where do I know you from? And it's clear he knows where I know him from, and he just doesn't want to say. The whole time he was trying to convince me that maybe I've seen him around other buildings in the city because he claims to have worked at other buildings, which I'm not denying. But obviously that's not where I knew it from. I wasn't gonna bring up the video, even though I'm sure he's seen it by then. I'm about to play the audio, but I whispered to him, I'm like, Scientology. He's like, huh? And I'm like, Scientology, you know, you actually audited me in Scientology. You remember I was Tyrone. And he's like, oh yes, that must be from where. It was clear. It felt like, you know, he was just kind of trying to play along with it. So we got into that little small talk. You could tell he was wanting it to finish. But I'm asking him, I'm like, you know, like, how's Scientology working for you? He's like, oh, it's great. Like, it's helped me with a lot of things. Typical shit you'd expect a Scientologist to say. And then he asked me, he's like, how was it for you? He didn't say, how is it? He's like, how was it for you? And so not only was that clear that he kind of knew who I was by saying was, but I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking it. But then that's when I tell him, I'm like, yeah, it wasn't so great. And then he honestly says some pretty real shit.
He's been here all this time.
Hold on, replay it. Dude, that's the guy who audited me in fucking Scientology. Dude, that's literally him. That's fucking bro. I dropped. I'm like, where do I know this guy from? And then all of a sudden he says, are you gonna kill me if I leave this here? I realize it's him from Scientology.
You're looking for the broom? Is that what he said?
No, I think he was wondering if I returned to the group.
I don't know. I think we have before.
It's possible. And then I have worked in this area. You do look a little familiar. I
Yeah.
can't tell where from.
Okay.
What? Yeah.
From Church of Scientology. You audited me.
Wait, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't recognize you.
It's a small world.
We're doing really well. We got more staff. We got everything getting bigger.
Yeah. Okay, that's where you look familiar from.
Yeah.
It's, how's that going for you?
Pretty good. Yeah. I mean, everybody's different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Some people, they just come and some people, they just make thousands of dollars. They have a good life, you know what I mean? And some people
But you really do find it's working for you and like everything.
Oh, yeah.
I know you've been there for quite some time, so clearly it does have an impact in your life in a good way, so I'm glad.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, nothing in Scientology is true unless it's true for you. Some people come, they don't care. Some people are part-timers. Some people like me are full-time. I had a bunch of demons I rid myself of.
The concept of ridding yourself of demons when joining Scientology is really just another expression we heard over and over again from basically all members of the church at the time to signify how life-changing it's supposed to be.
So yeah, after that day, I never saw him in the building or anything. And I'm not gonna keep yapping any longer like I've been doing this video, but as you could imagine, shit does kind of feel weird. Is that if any group out there were to do this, for example, try and go undercover to obtain a temporary job at your job to gather as much information on you as possible for God knows what, it would be Scientology. And so I'm hoping maybe you could see where I'm coming from.
I also want to clarify that I'm not trying to make accusations or point fingers. I just think that the way these things have played out are honestly so bizarre. I also believe that that conversation with David was really confirming in a way and also helpful to get a better understanding of why there are people in Scientology in the first place. I guess we're all just people trying to find our own sense of peace in this world.